70% ends up Everett's job too.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he's responsible. He hardly does any of the work.
We're doing our quarterly planning, starting today actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. The last time we did quarterly planning, like I really feel like we fucking crushed it. Like I felt really, really strong coming out of the last quarterly planning.
But coming out of the previous planning sessions and having a sense of strategy and planning in the business, I've always felt that in my head, I have a plan, even if I don't fucking know what it is. Like I'm willing to acquiesce to the fact that most of the time I figure out my genius at the same time everyone else does. And making it real has always come down to me, right? And then I preach and I pontificate and I try to recruit and I try to fucking hedge emotions and I'm committed. But I've never felt like there was a commitment, like
Outside of yourself.
like a commitment, like the bubble has widened, and this feels to me like a commitment. Like you all wrote down dates and like we're a team, and it feels like like we're shouldering something together. So I don't feel alone.
And in the last quarter, I've done more Rockefeller Habits work with my clients than I've ever done.
Right.
Like I'm starting to have, I had this moment yesterday where I realized I had remembered a specific checklist item and the specific number it was in on the Rockefeller Habits sheet.
Right.
And I was like, oh fuck, I'm starting to know this like values.
Right.
And I was like, that's how I know it's like important.
Right. Yeah.
And this is how we're going to measure our progress. Really, the outcome is we have 40 check boxes. That means you are fully a Rockefeller Habits organization. And the correlative result of that is that you're scaling and differentiated from your competitors. That's what they're saying. If we put a checkbox in all 40 of these boxes, this organization should in real life reflect that scaling differentiation. You have probably 6 to 9 top level processes in the organization, and you have a fixed number of functions in the organization. The principal lesson behind the concept of functional accountability and process accountability, or just simply accountability in general, is that where most organizations fail to understand how to shift the organizational momentum is they try to change behaviors and systems instead of changing accountabilities. And they don't even recognize accountabilities to begin with. And if you change a process, now you're not trying to change a person. There's this thing in human behavior where if you have a process and you both understand it, but it's not written down, okay? And you do it wrong. And I come to you and I say, hi, remember that thing you did wrong? Do it differently next time. What I'm doing is I'm engaging in the process of changing behavior, aren't I? And people don't like being changed. So now you're making that person feel like a fuck up. Now just imagine I extract the process from you and I put it on paper. And instead of sitting across from you saying you need to change, I'm sitting beside you saying we're going to change this thing. What I've just done is I've changed the exact same behaviors are happening. But now instead of her feeling like a failure and like she's not good enough, we both feel like we're contributing to the refinement of something outside of us. If any process, any function, any P&L item, any balance sheet item, or any other necessarily monitored thing has more than one person perceived as accountable, nobody is. Accountability doesn't mean responsibility. Accountability means she holds the torch. It doesn't mean she does it. She points at Alex and says, Alex, update my website. I'm responsible, you're accountable. Right? A week from now, if it's not done, you're the person who's going, is this done? That means you're accountable. And so when we spin up a system in a business, it's never the system that fails, it's the failure to assign accountability that fails. A system can be flashing a red light on a wall all day long. If there's no human being with an explicit assignment to do a thing when the red light goes off,
It's like the sewer never alarmed.
Nothing will happen. So if I'm in bounds on my sales quota, this is what happens. If I'm out of bounds on sales quota, this is what happens, and the sales manager is accountable to triggering that. Any listed function, any top-level process, really every process, right? Every item on the P&L and every item on the balance sheet requires one single named accountable party. Okay? And if you were to just do this exercise from the perspective of who's accountable now, you two are going to find yourselves in 90% of those spots. Simply because nobody has come here and told you, you need to transfer accountability by name to another party. And in transferring accountability, you transfer ownership. And so if you want other people in the organization to step into ownership and leadership, you must assign explicit accountability and then not interfere and rob them of it. If we don't create a culture where you're allowed to be, hey, you're accountable to this, 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 eventually they're going to do the thing. Everybody get something out of this?